It's hurricane time. So what is going on, guys? And yes, I actually am sitting outside in the rain because I thought, what better setting could I possibly have when I'm talking about prepping for hurricanes? So right now we're getting a little bit of a rain band. It just kind of died down a little bit. I'm hoping it picks up, honestly. I was prepared to get a little wet today for this video, but nonetheless, let's keep it rolling and let's go over the hurricane prep guide. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Pinch. I'm a local realtor here on the beautiful east coast of Florida, and hopefully it stays beautiful after Ian has his way with the state of Florida with this 500-mile radius. This is going to be a big storm. Luckily, it's not going to be hitting over here on the East Coast. It's hitting on the West Coast. And I say luckily just for us, but I am definitely keeping the West Coast in our prayers. We have a lot of friends over in the Tampa Bay area. They're actually driving over here tonight. Right now it's Tuesday, and I believe the 27th, I want to say. Yeah, so Tuesday, September 27th is the current date that I'm filming this video. And they're on their way over, hopefully to come from safety, and I hope they go back to a house that is still exactly how they left it. That would be the ideal scenario. So if you're looking for a channel that goes over everything about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate anywhere in the Florida East Coast, then please like this video, tap that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, because you'll be notified every single Friday when I upload a new video. I may upload this one a little bit earlier because I don't want to try to do all that whenever the internet's out, if that so happens to us. I'm getting calls from people every single day, and I absolutely love it. So if you have any questions or concerns, like hurricane prep or anything that you want to do to make sure that your house that you purchased down here on the East Coast is best prepared for a direct hit to the storm, then you've got to give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email, because I promise I'll have your back when making that move over here to the East Coast of Florida. All right, guys, so now it's time to jump into the video and why I'm sitting outside here in the rain, and that's because we're going to talk about hurricane prep and hurricane tutorials for what you should be doing and what steps that you should be doing when buying that house, that dream home here on the East Coast of Florida. So guys, the first step that I wanted to talk to you guys about in the beginning of this video is to be just a little bit of a prepper. So not the crazy overkill preppers that you see on TV. Now, you can take it to that level if you want to, but I don't recommend it unless you're living on, you know, a 5-acre farm, or you have a detached garage where you can just store those items and not have to worry about it. But for the normal person, let's just be the normal, responsible hurricane prepper Florida resident. So what we're going to need for that is at least 2 to 3, maybe even more cases of water. So you're just going to need water for at least a minimum of 3 days. And so what I'd recommend for that is, as soon as you buy your Florida home, if it's in the winter, you don't really need to worry about it. But let's say that we're going into summer, or you're buying your home at peak hurricane season, but there's no announcements yet. Still, first thing I do is I go to the store, buy 3-4 cases of water before the panic starts, and store it either in your garage on the side, or store it up in the attic, or even better, if you wanted to keep it air conditioned, just kind of keep the elements away from this bottled water, you could as well put it underneath the pantry or inside of an extra cabinet. So that's the first thing I would say that is to go whenever peak fear is happening. So we're seeing a lot of bare shelves. We're seeing people panicking, running to the grocery store, looking for this water. That is the first thing to go. Now, the second thing to go is going to be, of course, canned foods. So non-perishable foods that you'll be able to just open up with a hand crank can opener. That's going to be the second thing to go. So before a storm is announced, before, just in preparation, have just a good amount of canned food sitting in your pantry, set aside, ready to go. Now, Andrew, what are you're saying that we're going to get through a hurricane season. You know, hurricanes haven't even made a direct hit to Vero Beach since 2004. What the heck am I going to do with all this stuff? Well, drink the water. So that's number one. And then number two, if you want to, you know, if you're a fan of canned foods, if you actually bought foods that you would eat, then, you know, use it in your recipes and just have that for a few days to kill it off for the end of that hurricane season. Or number two, the next thing I'd recommend is donate it. So if you have a local church that is taking food, you know, having a local food drive where they're sending food down to Haiti, that's a very popular one to have here in Florida because it's close by, easy to get to. So just donate the canned food if you don't plan on eating it. So that's one thing I'd recommend, to be a little bit of a prepper when you first get down here. So just make sure to remember those items. 3 to 4 cases of bottled water before peak season starts, before people are yelling at you saying, you know, hey, you don't need all that. This is, why are you hoarding this stuff? They don't act like that. Floridians, we don't act like that unless a hurricane is coming. Be courteous to people as it is. Now, if you do not take my advice, or you do not have enough time between closing and the announcement of a storm to go and pick up these items, try to go at the very first announcement of a storm. So let's say that one is being, you know, talked about, that it could become a hurricane or it could be an issue. I would then use that time to go to the store and purchase what you need in the event that they're saying that this cone or this, you know, the path is going to be heading directly to you. So the reason I say do that is because everybody and their mother is going to be freaking out about the storm coming over and potentially hitting their area at the very first announcement that the path is going into their direction. Now, we don't really care whenever we know that there's developments coming up and down, but if you are seeing some signs that, you know, there is a storm developing coming off of Africa or coming up from the south, that is developing, it could turn into something serious. Before everyone gets their emotions and, you know, out of whack, that's when I'd recommend making that trip and just getting what you need and being able to take a breath. So early on during the announcements, I went ahead and pulled the boat off the boat lift, the one that I have. I took it off the lift in preparation before things got too crazy. We went over, got a couple cases of water before we even knew this thing was going to turn into a hurricane. And we've got some canned foods as well that we bought in the beginning of the hurricane season. So if you, like you said, you don't follow my advice of having some extra cases of water, make sure you do it at the very first introduction that a storm could potentially start to make its way over. Not at peak fear, because you'll be fighting people at the aisles, the grocery aisles, and it will not be a pretty scene. Now, another thing that you should purchase as soon as you buy the house is a generator. So you can have a generator. It doesn't have to have a backup generator installed to the side of the house, although those are very, very nice. You could get away with just a portable generator, and I would recommend something between the 5,000 to 7,000 watt range if you're just looking to power things such as a refrigerator, a microwave, and keep on your lights. If those are just the bare necessities you are looking to have, then you can just get away with a 5,000 to 7,000 watt generator. However, if you want to be powering something such as your air conditioning system, you won't really need your heater, trust me, during hurricane season in Florida. But then I recommend at least a 10,000 watt generator to purchase at that time. Now, for those of you who are more concerned with having backup power and just want to have something to where you don't even have to think about it, it just automatically kicks on when the power goes out, then look at the Generac backup generators. Those range between $12,000 to $15,000, but could be a very good investment and very worth it. Worth it investment if that is important to you and you just want to have a turnkey, ready to go way to have your power as soon as the power dies in your area. Okay, so now it's time to go into more bare essentials that you should purchase before peak hurricane season and before these things are stripped off the shelves. So the first thing that I would say is probably just a battery powered radio. That's always good to have. Just have your local news to where it could be broadcasting, telling you what the updates are when your TV's out, when your cable's out, even maybe your internet, your phone. I imagine your phone could work, but you really want to probably preserve that phone battery while you can, because you're going to lose the ability to charge your phone until you're able to get the generator up and running to start powering your electronic devices. So a battery or crank powered radio would be my first choice. The next thing is going to be a flashlight. Like I said, but I have a flashlight on the back of my phone. You're using the battery in your phone, which could be very, very important, and you could want to stretch that for as long as possible in the event of a storm. So please just get a normal battery powered flashlight as a backup, not use your phone to conserve that energy. The next thing is going to be any baby or pet supplies. So that's going to be something that will be stripped from the shelves as well, things that you don't think about, but baby supplies and pet supplies to keep yourself and keep your pets occupied and healthy while you are still quarantined in the house in the event of any floods, storms, or high winds, maybe even other dangerous things going on outside as well. Another thing is going to be coolers and ice packs. So not really ice, I wouldn't really advise that, but get the ice packs and just keep it in the back of your freezer. You know, everyone's got a shelf in the back of their freezer that they're not using, or that can store those little ice packs that you don't even really remember that you have in the first place. But in the event of a storm, you just know behind that shelf on the top there, you know, behind the chicken nuggets and the frozen french fries, there's going to be those cooler packs. That way you could still keep some things cool throughout, you know, the next day or two at least, and then not have to worry about that as well. So cooler and the cooler packs is another one I'd recommend buying before any announcement is made. And then this next one is kind of a bonus because a lot of people's water will be shut off as well, and then their heater won't be working, is that Amazon actually sells little showers, portable showers, to where it actually has a built-in heater. It's 100% battery powered, so you can have it fully charged or put it on the charger before when you know the storm is coming. So you can have this portable shower for people to use inside the showers. You know, just bring it in, haul it in, and then just use it and use your regular drain as normal in the event of a storm, and also in the event that your water is shut off. So that's just a bonus one, not really necessary, but for some people, trust me, it could be a big necessary purchase. A little bonus tip as well, a lot of the newer cars are actually coming with the ability to operate as its own generator with the car running. So you can have the car running in idle, you know, run an extension cord out to it, or however you plan on wiring it, and use your car as a form of a generator. So I have a diesel truck, newer 2021 GMC Sierra, to where it in the tailgate, it actually has a normal plug that you can use, and use the GMC as its own generator. So that's pretty cool. I know there's a lot of other models that have similar features as well. So that's one thing. Definitely make sure to fill up your tank before this, you know, before the storm makes landfall. Typically people don't freak out too much with the gas, and that the gas stations are still able to serve the pumps, but just make sure to do this early on and keep your driving to a minimum if you can control that at the first announcement of the storm, and then go back a second time to top it off right before, if that's you know, if that's something that you need to do before one comes around. So some key things to know when it comes to preparing the house. If you want to buy the most equipped house prepared, ready for the storm, they have done a lot of building code updates, especially after 2006. So in 2004, we had Francis and Jean come through, and then the state of Florida enacted some new building codes that started having effect around the 2006, 2005, and 2006 range. So the new building codes include extra straps that are going to be put onto your trusses of your roof. So these straps and extra screws are going to help keep that roof on, and that's with a lot of damage. A lot of damage happened with the roofs being able to be lifted off with these high winds. That is going to prevent that from happening, at least to a higher degree. Makes your house a little bit more hurricane proof than it was before, than houses built prior to 2005 and 2006. And if you are not planning on buying a house that was built in 2006 plus, then this is still a relatively cheap and easy thing. I think they run about 75 cents to 95 cents per bracket, and then you have to add installation to that as well. So these hurricane straps are not very expensive to do. That's why I didn't heighten the you know, the cost of building too much. But yeah, so it's definitely something you can add to a house that's already existing if you'd like to. They're very easy to put on, or you can hire someone and of course just add labor to do that as well. Insurance companies will love that for you too. So when you get the wind mitigation report, they should be able, the inspector will be able to take a picture of those hurricane straps and lower your insurance premium by quite a bit. So now it's time to pretend that the hurricane is heading right for you. And it's maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 days out whenever the track is being released. So I'm going to encourage that you do not panic. I wouldn't throw up shutters right away. I would leave shutters for maybe 2 to 3 days before, maybe even the day before, because it's actually a relatively quick thing to do. You just go into your garage and grab those shutters. If you have a newer construction home, it's especially easy to do. But go into your garage, grab those shutters. Usually they're just gonna have little lug nuts or little bolts that you slide the shutters on and then just tighten it down. You do that 2 to 3 times per window, and it's very easy to do. Now, if you need help for it, there's always going to be someone on Facebook or even a neighbor going by offering to put up shutters in the event that a storm is heading right your way. So maybe a couple days before, 3 days before maybe, I wouldn't even worry about doing the shutters until then, because the spaghetti models change constantly. They're always moving, they're always shifting. The storm's going to move to the east, it's going to move to the west, it's going to stall, it's going to stop, whatever it may happen. Storms are very unpredictable, and they are not perfect with their estimations where the storm is going to land. So I would just avoid that. Maybe just do 1 or 2 windows at a time and just kind of slowly progress if you're not, you know, too free in your time or you're worrying about a bunch of other things at the same time. But definitely try to put a pause on that. Also, taping the windows. So just please know that the tape on the window, the big X's, circles, whatever, you know, shape that people are putting on their windows, it is not to prevent breaking. That is not going to prevent breaking at all. Really what that's doing is it's just going to hold the glass together in the event that one does shatter. So just know that does not protect your window. It'll just keep it from shattering everywhere in the event that something does impact that window and break it. So not a foolproof method, but people do still do it, and it can be kind of a pain to remove. So I just recommend the shutters if you can do that. And not do the tape. So another one is going to be reinforce your garage doors. So garage doors, a lot of the older ones you will need to reinforce, but if you have a newer home, especially 2006 or more, a lot of those garage doors are going to be already reinforced with extra hurricane strength reinforcements built into the door itself. So no need to worry about that. But it is something I wanted to mention because there are still plenty of older homes in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that do not have this extra hurricane reinforcement. In that case, there's usually a big metal bar that'll go down, depending on how wide your garage door is, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 at a time. So one on the, you know, 1 or 2 on each side, and then 1 in the middle, and then you just push it down into the concrete. There already should be a pre-drilled hole on the bottom of your garage floor where they anchor down, and that's going to help keep your garage door from bending in or out in the event of a higher wind situation. Another thing to do is to bring in all those loose items. So us Floridians, I'll put a picture up on the screen. If you have a pool, a lot of people just throw their patio furniture inside the pool. Pretty funny way of countering it, but pretty smart, because, you know, that's not really going to, the wind isn't going to be picking up the items underneath the water. So that's a good way to counteract it. But if you don't have a pool, just make sure to remember to bring in all of your lighter items and any items that can be blown away or affected by the high wind situation. Bring it inside and make sure that that is good to go before before a storm approaches. Another thing is going to be filling up the tubs. So any tubs that you have, fill that up with water and then close the drain. We're going to use this to flush toilets. So if in the event that the water is turned off, you can then fill up the reservoir in the back of the toilet with a bucket or with a pitcher. Just fill that up with the water, open up the back reservoir of the toilet, pour the water in, and you can use that to flush your toilet in the event the water's shut off. And also make sure to charge your phone, as I mentioned before. So now your prepping's done, your shutters are on, now you're turning on the TV, awaiting the storm, and wondering, what the heck is the weatherman saying? I've never heard these terms before. Well, let me break them down for you, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the weatherman is saying as you're watching for the storm or waiting for the storm to approach. So if you're in a tropical storm watch, so tropical storm watch is going to be the least amount of worry that you should be putting on this storm if you're within a tropical storm watch, because it's just saying that the tropical storm conditions are possible within your area, but not necessarily likely. So based on the spaghetti models and the trajectories that the computers are putting this hurricane at, you're only in a tropical storm watch area, which means that you may encounter some tropical storm winds, which isn't really that big of a deal. Now, if that changes to a tropical storm warning, That means that the storm is going to be hitting you in a way to where it's not a direct hit, but maybe the outside skirts or the outside bands are going to be making their way through your area, and it's going to have tropical storm effects on your area. So the watch is a lot different than the warning. So the warning means that this is very, very likely to happen, and so you should prepare for tropical storm conditions to hit your home. Now let's go into hurricane watch. That is where it's still not the biggest deal in the world. Maybe they're projecting it's going to come, you know, north of you or west of you, east of you, however it may be. They're not predicting that it's going to be a direct hit, but it still is possible. So if you're in a hurricane watch situation, definitely make sure that you have all those items that we discussed earlier on in this video, but it's not going to be likely that the hurricane is going to make a direct impact on you. Now, if you're in a hurricane warning situation, this is where it is the biggest deal. Hurricane warnings are issued 36 hours in advance of a storm hitting an area. So they have a very good idea of where the model is saying that the hurricane's going to be. This is usually whenever all models are in agreement about where this hurricane is going to hit. The spaghetti models are going to be piled on top of each other, making a beeline for your area. This is when a hurricane warning is going to be issued, and it's really time to prepare. It is time to do everything that we mentioned in this video, if not evacuate. So evacuating, I'm not going to tell you which category you should evacuate for or not, because it definitely changes on your scenario and where you're situated within an area. Storm surges are very, very real and very underestimated as well. So definitely, if you're within an area that could be affected by a storm surge, please get out and evacuate no matter what. But I'm not going to tell you, you know, category 1, 2, 3, we don't really worry about. 4 and 5, we definitely evacuate. I'm not going to say that, but with coming from a Floridian, I typically stay put for anything category 3 or below within my area, being inland and not being in a flood zone. So now it's time to break down a little bit more terms that you will be hearing on TV. So the first one is the eye. What are they talking about when they're talking about the eye of the storm? I'm sure most of you know this, but for those who don't, the more defined the eye is, the more severe the storm. So if the eye is a perfect circle, and you know, I don't know how wide these eyes get, you know, they definitely vary in lengths, but definitely the more defined, the more severe the storm from what I've seen in the past. So that's going to be the very calm center in the middle of the storm. This is where, if you are brave enough, you can go outside and take a look. I don't recommend this. People have died doing this, but if the eye passes over you and you did have a way to see outside, you'll see that it looks very calm. You might even be able to see the sun, some sunlight coming up when you're in the middle of that eye. Now, it's not going to last for very long, because when that storm blows over, it's going to pick back up again. So now moving on to the eye wall. So the eye wall, the reason I say do not go outside when the eye of the storm passes over your area is because the eye wall is the most intense part of this storm. This is where the winds are the highest, and this is where it gets the most intense part of the hurricane. The outside bands are the weakest, and then the eye wall is going to be the strongest. Now moving on to the bands, I've already said it before, but those are just the weak bands that I'm sitting in right now, where the rain bands just pass over, and sometimes it's heavier rain with lightning, other times it's just light sprinkles like what I'm dealing with right now. Now, something to be aware of, that when you do get into the part to where the hurricane is close to you and those rain bands come across, they can contain isolated tornadoes. Now, these tornadoes are not they're not the strongest tornadoes, but they should still be taken very seriously, because I have seen them do quite the devastation on some properties when these isolated tornadoes hit ground and make their way through neighborhoods. So do not take these rain bands lightly. I'm sitting outside because I see no threat with this particular rain band, but as the storm approaches closer, we're definitely going to be bunkered down inside in the event that one of these more severe rain bands comes around and has isolated tornadoes and thunderstorms involved with them. And so now another term is going to be the storm surge. So the storm surge right now, unfortunately, we are within king tide range. So king tide is where the tide is just always up a little bit higher than it traditionally is. And then now you mix in the storm surge with that king tide, that can make it a very, very deadly combination between the storm surge and the king tide. So this is the most deadly part of the storm. More people are killed with the storm surge alone than the wind and the lightning and the tornadoes all combined. the storm surge is the one that seems to do the most damage. So that's whenever, you know, you're within a flood zone, you're within a coastal area, and you decide to ride it out. Well, it could happen to where the waters rise up, and you know, you could be a drowning victim, you could be swept away with the current. Really anything could happen within a storm surge, and they do a lot more damage than what people think. Always, always, always do more damage than what people anticipate. So if you're in an area that could be affected by a storm surge, please get out, please evacuate. These mandatory evacuations are not put there just for your entertainment and for you to consider. They're mandatory for a reason, because they know that you're going to be in a high risk area and that storm surges are always underestimated and always deadly. So that's one thing I will be serious about being a Floridian. I've seen and heard stories of people within storm surges refusing to leave. That's always the thing that seems to do it. It's not the wind, it's not the tornadoes, it's not the anything else. It's always those rising waters of the ocean. So now talking about evacuation zones. So we're gonna keep this pretty local. I'm gonna pull up Indian River County map right here on the screen, and we're going to go over the different evacuation zones that Indian River County has. So the first one and the most obvious one is going to be, of course, if you live on the island. So the island itself is going to have a lower sea level and going to have more of a direct impact. That storm is going to be the absolute strongest when it hits the island, and it's not going to break up really at all whenever it makes over that area. So that is going to be the first zone to be told to leave, if you're anywhere on the island. The next one is going to be if you're east of US 1. So anyone east of US 1 is going to be also in a mandatory evacuation zone in the event of a major storm approaching, making a beeline towards Vero Beach or Sebastian. Another one for you Sebastian people, so anywhere near the Sebastian River. So the Sebastian River comes from the Indian River Lagoon and then snakes off up until the Sebastian Highlands, a little bit north and then northwest of Sebastian Highlands, but a lot of people live around that river. That's going to be another area where they're going to be telling you to leave, because a storm surge could affect your area being there on that Sebastian River. And then the last evacuation area that I wanted to mention is also going to be east of the railroad. So anywhere in the railroads, you're going to notice that there's going to be a track here on this map. That's going to be east of the railroads there. So Mr. Cannon decided to join me. Mama's making some funny faces along with cousin Ella Rose. Dancing behind the camera right now. So that's just the last part of the evacuation zones that I wanted to talk about. And now Cannon and I wanted to give you some tips about what not to do after the storm is done. After the storm is done, right? Yeah. All right, so we're gonna jump into those tips right now. The first thing that I have to say, so you're gonna be very tempted along with your kids. So if Cannon was a little bit older, like me, I was about 10, 12 years old whenever the hurricanes came through here in Florida and we got the direct hit in Vero Beach. You're gonna be tempted to go into the standing water outside in your front lawn. So get the boogie boards out, get the skim boards out. Hold on to that thought for a minute, because do not try to do that. It's going to be a little bit of a higher risk for fallen power lines or any kind of power that's going to be electrifying the area or the water within your lawn. So do not step or be near any standing water. It's going to have some germs in it too, so anything like that, any open wounds, you do not want to expose yourself to the standing water within your lawns. The next one is going to be an obvious one, but please be aware of any fallen power lines, any power lines that are down, because that will happen in any high wind situation. Power lines are going to be down from after the event of a storm, so obviously stay away from those. Hopefully they're going to be, you know, de-electrified or turned off at the time, but it could happen to where you do have a live power line that is fallen and it is anywhere near your house. Just stay away from those. Don't drive through those, don't drive over those. And yeah, he's telling you stay away. Caution, right, bud? Danger, danger. The next one is a very common mistake. It's going to be mistakes made with generators or any kind of propane or outdoor grills. Please make sure that you do not use the generator indoors. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a very common thing that happens after the storm, so make sure that the generators are outside. And I've even heard stories of generators having a exhaust system that can go through an open window as well. And that has unfortunately had some pretty bad end results for some families there too. So make sure that your generators are pointed away, cannot be let in any kind of way with the fumes from the generator. Don't have it indoors. That is one of the most common ways people injure themselves or get themselves into trouble after the storm is done. And then last but not least, Cannon wanted to tell you, stay away from sketchy trees. Any trees that are hanging from just a thread or just look like they've been shifted from the storm and the roots are uprooted. And please do your best to stay away from those. Don't climb on them. Don't go near them. They could be weak and they could be falling at any moment. So please just be aware of those. The ground is going to be very soft and soiled from the water damage that the area has had, so those could be shifting as well. So guys, that really concludes the video of hurricane preparation for new Florida residents. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you have any questions or concerns before making that move down here to the East Coast of Florida, you got to give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email, because I promise we will have your back when making that move to the Florida East Coast. Have a great rest of your weekend, stay safe, and talk to you later. Bye. All right.
Cannon's famous!
Yes!
Wait, what's